Hey there, folks. My name is Misadventurer, and welcome to the first episode of the Asita Campaign. This is going to be a brand new series here on the channel, featuring the 2019 grand strategy game Imperator Rome, along with a number of mods. Most prominently, the Age Reborn Total Conversion mod, with some slight changes that I made to it. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. Also featuring a number of other mods as well. Now, this is going to be a bi-weekly series with new episodes coming out every Wednesday and Sunday at noon Central Time. And I'll be aiming for 60-minute episodes, although as brisk as 50 or as long as 70 is okay, but I will be aiming at 60. Now, in terms of the mod setup, which I'll talk about first before we get into the campaign starting situation a bit more thoroughly, and there will be timestamps in the description so that you can skip ahead if you've seen this part already. The main mod we're playing with is, of course, Age Reborn. This is a legendary total conversion mod for Imperator Rome, which transforms the game from a strategy experience set in the late classical period to one set in the middle Bronze Age, 2115 BCE to be specific. Now, this is a very different setting than the classical age, despite them both seeming so far in the past from the modern day, and the difference in setting is not just in the time period, but also in the location. Age Reborn features a completely custom campaign map, which is closely zoomed in on the Eastern Mediterranean, the Near East, and the Middle East, where the Bronze Age world was really located, at least outside of the very far east of China, and the Indus River Valley to some extent as well. That is also arguably a Bronze Age hub, but most of the Bronze Age action was happening in the Eastern Mediterranean world, which is where this mod is set. And with the Bronze Age mod, much of the base game's mechanics have been altered and modified and improved for the Bronze Age setting, but some of it will not have been changed that directly, so expect some anachronistic references to classical age stuff to be found here in this mod. It is what it is. I'm happy to suspend my disbelief for a mod of this quality. Now, on top of playing with the Age Reborn mod, I'm playing with a slightly modded version of the mod that I've made some changes to. What I've done is I have removed all of the starting roads from the map, so roads work the same way. I can still build them, the AI can still build them, and they have the same mechanics. There just won't be any roads on the map by default, and I've also removed all of the starting holy sites. Again, holy sites can still be created by myself or the AI. They work the same mechanically, they cost the same. There just won't be any on the map by default. And both these changes are to further enhance the general theme of the Bronze Age mod, as allowing for more of a sandbox, open-ended Imperator Rome experience compared to the slightly more structured and historically informed way that the vanilla game is laid out. As we have, despite not having that much, we do have much more information about the late classical period than we do about the middle Bronze Age in terms of who was where and to what amounts. Now, I've also made one more change to the Age Reborn mod for this campaign, and that has to do with rebalancing one particular mechanic. In this version of Age Reborn that I'm playing for this campaign, colonization of uncolonized tiles is going to cost normally 20 political influence and 750 manpower. This is a very, very expensive action to take, which I'm fine with because it should be a strategically important choice to make to spend resources to do that. But in my opinion, manpower is just too scarce a resource. It's very difficult to gain manpower in any way, especially in the early and mid-game. And because colonization is often required to advance through the generic missions in a way that I don't think was really thoroughly contemplated when making it that expensive, at least not for the pace of a YouTube campaign, where there really should be some eye towards pacing with all decision-making. I think ultimately that Bronze Age colonization should be rebalanced, and that's what I've done myself, as I do have some modding experience at this point. I've gone ahead and changed the price to 20 political influence and 250 manpower, not 750. So it's still a very expensive action by any means, particularly that PI cost. And 250 manpower is a amount of manpower that I really should not be throwing away flippantly, but it's no longer the ridiculously, prohibitively expensive manpower cost, given that I just don't really have ways to get manpower in any strategic sense. There are lots of ways to get gold, to get treasury, even to get things like political influence or stability, but manpower is a really difficult resource to accumulate in any strategic way. It's really just something you're passively gaining over time in most scenarios. So the extreme manpower cost of the default Bronze Age Reborn colonization mechanic, I just think is a little beyond the pale, particularly for a campaign where I want to have a clear sense of progression at all times. 250 is still quite a bit, so I am more than happy to give myself, and incidentally the AI who also used this new cost, this leg up in the Bronze Age experience. Now, that wraps up my discussion of the Bronze Age mod, but I have a few other mods going as well. I have my list here down to my left. I've also got the no minimum levy size mod. This has been a recurring mod in all of my mod orders and many of my modded campaigns. Essentially, what it does is it removes an exception to a rule in the way that this game calculates cohort numbers for your levy. You raise your levy, your army, from different regions where you have population, and normally the levy is dynamically and fluidly calculated based on the number of pops in the region that are your native pops or of an integrated culture. Now, this rewards you for assimilating pops in a region or making the very large strategic decision to integrate a culture into your country's sort of first-class cultures, as it were. But the way that it works normally is that without any changes, both in the vanilla game and in Bronze Age Reborn, every region will always give you a minimum levy of 4 cohorts, even if there wouldn't be enough native or integrated populations there to give you any cohorts or up to 4 cohorts. And in my opinion, this relatively small gameplay element, which is there for balance, does make particularly the early game feel a lot less impactful when it comes to needing to invest time and resources into converting and assimilating new regions that you enter to be part of your court. This game breaks down the paradox coring system from some of their other games like Europa Universalis into a more realistic approach where you core territory in a more direct and simulated way by assimilating and converting it to your native culture and religion, or integrating. And so I think that the population system is so well thought out and so well integrated into how levies work that I don't like that this exception gives you a pass for not needing to do that work, particularly when you can just get the advantage of a couple additional cohorts really for no work at all. So the minimum levy system is now gone with this mod. Regions will only provide the number of cohorts that they actually are calculated to provide, and not the 4 cohorts if the number that they calculate is below 4. So that's what this mod does. Now, I'm also playing with the Simply More Families mod. This mod increases the number of great families that join your nation as you increase in rank. This already happens normally, but this mod just adds additional families on top of that. This should increase the complexity of internal politics, which is always something I think this game does a good job at attempting to simulate, but doesn't really focus on too closely, so this will increase the scale of that. Also, in the Bronze Age mod, no one's allowed to have female officers. You can have a female ruler if your succession law allows for it, but female officers are not allowed. So this will allow for more characters to work with to have a min-maxed government. Pretty good, given that without half the population available for offices, we're going to be just scrambling to find anyone with any good stats, particularly finesse. I can never seem to find anyone with any finesse in any of my campaigns. The finesse brain drain is a constant, miserable situation that I'm always in. So we'll see if we could have a slightly more finesse-oriented population here with this mod helping out. Also playing with the Great Wonders Refined mod. This is just a graphical mod that adds in some additional module appearances for the Great Works, or kind of the wonders that you can build yourself. I don't expect to be doing very much wonder building right away, but we will hopefully get to that in the late game. This will allow for some more interesting designs that I can go for, most of which, again, are anachronistic to the Bronze Age. These are Classical Age appearances, but many of the wonder designs already don't really work in the Bronze Age if you really think about what you're building, as at this time, people are really just building pyramids and maybe big squares. That's kind of what most buildings are, I guess, but you get the idea. So, just a nice mod to have for some additional wonder diversity when I do some wonder construction later. I've also got the Gray Neutral Units mod. This is sort of an accessibility mod for me. I'm actually partially colorblind and I struggle to differentiate certain shades of red, green, and gray. And in this game's default UI, the gray of neutral armies and navies and the red of hostile armies and navies look very similar to me. So this makes those colors more stark in difference and is going to help me visually not need to mouse over those armies and navies every single time to double check and see, is this a neutral army or navy or a hostile army or navy? Going to be helpful in just improving the flow of gameplay. Also playing with the Skybox mod. This is a camera mod that allows us to zoom in close to the ground and then look as if in a first-person view out across the horizon. This is not the way the game is normally meant to be rendered, and the engine struggles a bit, and it's a bit glitchy and doesn't really have any gameplay benefit, but it's kind of cool to do ever so often. We can get a nice close look at the often quite beautiful custom Bronze Age unit models and buildings, and if we do build some wonders, we can take a look at those as well from a close-up view. Lastly, I've got the Music Player Plus mod. This mod adds in over 100 additional tracks to this game's soundscape, mostly from other Paradox and strategy games, but also from some TV shows and movies, all of which have an appropriate classical and ancient age sound to them. So, pretty good stuff. With all of that said, let's go ahead and get started with the campaign and talk about our starting situation here in the Bronze Age world. And of course, we're going to be looking at the beautiful Bronze Age Reborn campaign map. As noted before, a completely custom campaign map set here in the Eastern Mediterranean, Egypt, the Near East, and the Middle East. And we're going to be playing in this campaign as the Kingdom of Ostia, or rather Asita, I should say. Asita is this kingdom over here on the Anatolian coast. Now, we have a fairly interesting heritage we can take a look at here, Sudetan heritage. The Sudetans, or Asitans, were a people of what the Greeks called Pamphylia, the land of all tribes. One of the most important ports of the region, it had intense contact with other maritime peoples, such as the Minoans. Sude means pomegranate in a Luwian language. So I say that this is an interesting heritage, not in terms of the lore. We're just a Anatolian port city-state, nothing really too special, but rather because of the gameplay implications. I think this is one of the more interesting Bronze Age Reborn heritages in terms of its actual modifiers. Now, not to say that it's good or strong. I do think this is strong, but it does have some downsides. Now, let's talk about the national unrest bonus here, minus 0.50. That's a pretty strong bonus for a part of the game that you often don't get ways to counteract very directly. National unrest will affect your provincial loyalty, it'll affect your population output. It's actually quite a powerful under-the-hood style mechanic that you often overlook, or that I often overlook. And having this minus 0.50 bonus to it will actually really help keep our nation under control, even when we're in times of trouble, so that's quite handy. Pop assimilation speed minus 5%, probably the quintessential misadventurer doesn't like it style modifier. I famously am very obsessed with pop assimilation, and this modifier does make me cry a little bit, but only a little bit, because minus 5% isn't too bad. And the next bonus we'll talk about in just a second really makes up for it, but we will have to work around our assimilation malice. Again, assimilation modifiers directly are not necessarily the most important part of how you strategize doing pop assimilation. It's more about getting those direct sources of assimilation, as the 5% here is a modifier on whatever the direct assimilation number is. So if this was like -1 pop assimilation, and by the way, I don't think I've ever seen any heritage directly reduce the assimilation base number as opposed to the modifier number, then I would be weeping. But in this case, I'm only tearing up a little bit. Minus 5%, although a bit of a roadblock, is not necessarily an end to our assimilation opportunities. It's just a very slight issue for us, but we'll get around it just fine. Now, the really interesting part of Sudetan heritage is national citizen desired ratio 5%. I can't begin to tell you how powerful these couple of words are and this 5% number is. This doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but think about this. Every single tile in my nation has a 5% increase to its national citizen desired ratio. Every single, non-city settlement, every single city settlement. Now, would I really want citizens in non-city locations? Actually, yes. And even though I plan to specialize cities, as I have done in my other Imperator campaigns, to focus typically on nobles or citizens, maybe sometimes on freemen. Cities are generally going to be the best places for citizens because they can have much higher citizen ratio and can boost citizens quite a bit more. Having citizens able to live in all of my settlements, typically maybe 1 or 2 more pops per settlement depending on the settlement's population capacity, that'll change what the ratio means in terms of real numbers. This is really powerful to allow for a nation, a kingdom, that has a citizenry of much greater demographic numbers than what I would normally see. Typically, your citizens are a minority of your nation, with freemen being the majority, maybe sometimes tribesmen if you're playing as a tribe, often in practice slaves because you just conquer so many people. But to have a high number of citizens really, really dramatically changes how particularly your research capabilities look. Now, nobles also provide research. They provide, in my experience, more reliable amounts of research, but you really are going to struggle to find ways to increase noble desired ratio. And there's a lot of late game strategies that revolve around that. But national citizen desired ratio, not in cities, in every single tile, cities and settlements, 5% across the board, is a game-changing bonus for us. And its effects are really, truly not going to be felt right away. We're not going to really notice this in the background until later in the game when every single tile is producing little bits of research, and our cities are producing even more research with an oversized citizen desired ratio compared to what we can normally get. Keeping in mind that citizen desired ratio, or really any kind of desired ratio for any kind of pop, is a particularly rare modifier. Right? These are modifiers that normally in Bronze Age, buildings alone are going to be giving you desired ratio in most cases. Maybe some rare gods will give you desired ratio, maybe some other rare modifiers, but this is really an uncommon and rare modifier because it's so powerful. And being able to have 5% citizen desired ratio across the board, I can't begin to tell you what kind of research power we're going to be able to harness later in the game if we play our cards right and really plan around this. So we're going to be going for a very carefully organized campaign here, really leaning into our power of having citizens in every single tile. This is going to be interesting. So, having said that, let's talk about our starting situation a bit more thoroughly here. We're playing as an autocratic monarchy. We have a single ruler who rules for life with a consort. The consort, of course, provides their stats to override the lower stats of the ruler, though only for the national effects. That's quite nice. We have 1 military, 1 civic, and 1 religious idea, 6% slave output when we match those up. We have a 15% civ level by default, and we also have a 40% assault power malice by default as well. This, of course, is a Bronze Age Reborn game-wide system for all governments. They all have this 40% assault malice, just as a way to nerf the very powerful assault system for sieges, which I am totally okay with. Although we will probably still do assaults when we can get away with it. Although, even with my nerf to the manpower cost of colonization, I will still need to watch my manpower, as assaults are very expensive on manpower with this malice. Conferring absolute power, the title of an autocratic monarchy is hereditary. Now, we were playing with the Luwian religion. Luwian gods were worshipped by the Luwian language-speaking people who lived in central, western, and southern Anatolia. The chief god was the weather god Tat-Huns, often pictured on a chariot pulled by horses. Goddess Kamrasep also played an important role in magical rituals intending to bring rain or heal the sick. Now, the Luwian religion, like many of the Bronze Age religions, is okay, but not amazing. I think the Luwian religion is one of the stronger ones, to be honest. Reinforcement speed 5% is nice, but not game-changing. Global monthly food modifier 10% is actually quite good, particularly with the Bronze Age drought we're going to be dealing with right when the game starts. And the best of these modifiers, loyalty of characters +3, is actually kind of a nice, actually more than nice, it's kind of a great modifier to have right at the start, as character loyalty is a system that you largely just accumulate bonuses for over the course of the game and then forget about. So having the +3 right away allows us to play a bit more fast and loose with character management. And given that political influence is largely derived from the loyalty of your officers, this is going to help us maximize our political influence right away, an important early game goal for us. Lastly, we are playing as an Asitan or Asitan culture. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. Let me know in the comments if you happen to know how to pronounce this. I couldn't find anything online. I guess I'll call it Asitan. I'll say Asitan. The Asitan culture is a member of the Luwian culture group, so our culture group is the same name as our religion. Nice and easy to remember. In terms of our pop levies, we have 20% chariots, 30% archers, and 50% skirmishers. A very foot infantry heavy army style, perfectly fine for our sieging, where assaulting will use infantry and not chariots, although the 20% chariots will give us an edge on the field when flanking. Keep in mind, though, that all of the other Luwian culture group cultures, and probably many of the other Anatolian culture groups, are going to have similar kinds of levy compositions, so just worth noting that. Now, our starting king is the, I think, pretty impressive-looking Ukara the First Takis. Now, this fine, I was going to say young, he's actually 31, this fine, for the Bronze Age, middle-aged, or almost kind of elderly gentleman, is our king, 6'7", 5'4". Pretty good stats, and having high martial and finesse, or higher martial and finesse, definitely is a good start for Kingdom. He's a little on the old side for a starting king, and keep in mind that this is not a custom preset character, but rather sort of a pre-generated character that I just happened to roll with this recording session, so I'm happy with this. And we'll take a look at his traits once we can see them, once we get into the game here. Of course, he is Asitan and Luwian as well. I think I'll probably call the nation Asita. That feels the easiest to say for me, as opposed to Asita. So Asita, I think that sounds pretty good. Alright, and I may also call it Astia by accident every so often. I'm only human, or am I? No, I am only human. Okay, let's not, I don't know where I'm going with that. Let's continue talking about the Asita starting situation. So, we've got 5 territories in the Lower Melas province, which is part of the West Taurus governorship or region. And we have 30 pops to start with, 0 nobles, 3 citizens, 19 freemen, 5 tribesmen, and 3 slaves. And although this is covered by my face cam, we also have a couple of game configuration things to attend to at the bottom right here. Now, I will be playing on Ironman mode, even though I can't earn achievements with the mods that I have. That's perfectly fine. I like having Ironman mode just to have the autosaves, keep my game saved pretty regularly. The game doesn't crash that often, but it does occasionally, and Bronze Age is admittedly probably one of the less kind of mechanically, or not, one of the less kind of game engine stable of the overhaul mods, just because it's so different from the base game. But in my opinion, or in my experience I should say, it doesn't really crash that often, so I'm not too worried about this, but it's nice just to have the autosaves do all the work for me. Mixed gender rules doesn't work in Bronze Age, so I'm just not even going to bother. But the really interesting part of this campaign is going to be the difficulty. Now, I'm going to be playing this campaign on very hard difficulty, and I need to spend a few minutes talking about what this is going to mean for the campaign's balancing and experience, because very hard difficulty in Imperator Rome is actually quite a big step up in challenge. I feel up for the task, but I want to talk about what this is going to look like. So this is the hardest setting to play on. The AI will be given substantial bonuses while human players get none. AI countries will be more aggressive, which is true. On very hard difficulty and on hard difficulty, the AI will be noticeably more aggressive and will also declare war on you while you're at war, something that on normal and below it often won't do, or in fact it may not be coded to be able to do. I haven't checked the code in a while. As for the modifiers, the most and by far the most impactful, well, I should say the most important and by far the most impactful modifiers of very hard is the morale of armies and navies. Player gets minus 10% navy and army morale, and the AI gets plus 10% navy and army morale. This is a huge, extremely impactful effect of very hard difficulty that turns the game into what I have often called the morale arms race with the AI, as even with similar troop numbers, even with, even with a slight advantage in troop numbers and discipline, morale often wins battles. In fact, it's the resource that affects how a battle is determined, is the morale. That's what runs out to end a battle. So these kinds of morale differences, a 20% difference between unmodded or kind of unmodified morale for the Asita army versus any other army on the map, is going to be game-changing. So we need to find sources of morale everywhere that we can, and we're still going to struggle to outpace the AI, given that they can also get those same sources of morale much of the time. So combat and wars will come down to picking fights with extreme care. We can't get into wars that we can't win, particularly against enemies that have any sort of manpower or martial advantage. So neighbors that are going to have high martial leaders we need to decide if we want to fight them very, very carefully, or make use of things like mercenaries, mercenary leaders, other characters to lead our armies, so on and so forth, to get the edge. So this really increases the strategic planning around war, a central part of this game. So that is a huge part of the very hard difficulty, is the morale modifiers. But it doesn't end there. The AI get further ridiculous modifiers as well. 50% national tax, let's not ignore how overpowered that is for the AI and their wealth. Provincial loyalty plus 0.01, helps them a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. Integrated culture happiness plus 15%, they're very unlikely to have rebellions or serious internal stability problems because of that. National manpower, 50%. The AI is completely unbeatable in any sort of war of attrition. We are almost never going to successfully outproduce the manpower of anyone unless we are way stronger than them, and then in that case there's really no reason that it needs to be a war of attrition if we're that much more powerful. So we really need to remember that any war against anyone needs to be quick, decisive, and non-attritional. We are going to really struggle to keep up with the manpower numbers of basically anybody. Aggressive expansion change minus 0.02, so they get that even, although it's not a really huge bonus. And then, this one is kind of absurd, monthly ruler popularity gain plus 1. This is a crazy bonus for them, although again, ruler popularity isn't a super critical mechanic most of the time, but it's just absurd how powerful this is for them. Monthly tyranny minus 0.04, and threshold for civil war plus 10%. Basically, the AI is going to be stronger, better, and more organized than I will ever be, so I have to use my human intelligence and forethought to work around these crazy buffed AIs. And I have to use the AI against the AI as best I can, finding chances to use allies, or hopefully more often subjects, to do my work for me, and make use of mercenaries to help me out as well. So that's the basic situation with very hard difficulty. With all of that said, let's go ahead and enter the Asita campaign and get going. Alright, I'll also learn at some point how to actually say this name correctly. Asita. I may just call it both names now and then. Okay, the 4.2 kilo-year event. Starting a few decades ago, much of the world has been struck by a devastating drought that has caused the collapse of the Akkadian Empire, the Egyptian Old Kingdom, and the Longzhou culture of the Far East. It is a time of social upheaval and destruction of sacred sites and great migrations, of people seeking better lands. We must navigate these treacherous waters with great care. We must endure. The entire known world is suffering through a several-decade-long drought, with the more severe one in Egypt. Local monthly food modifier minus 25%. Pretty brutal stuff. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our starting situation a bit more thoroughly. So first and foremost, we are in the aforementioned West Taurus region, and we are specifically in the Lower Melas province, with our capital at Asita, down here by the water. This is one of the best kinds of tiles in the game for a capital city. It's farmland, coastal, with a port slot, because in Bronze Age Reborn, only some coastal tiles have port slots, the ability to have a port. It's marked by the flocks of birds. Those are tiles that are allowed to have a port. And it's also on a river, so this is a really strong location for capital. No need to ever think of moving it, nor do I plan to. Now, in terms of our nation overview, let's talk for a second about our decisions we have access to. So, on top of just generally expanding and seeking to improve our nation and strengthen ourselves over time in the way that you normally would, we also have a few specific things we can try to do. Now, the first thing we're going to be aiming for is to unite the Tarhantasan people. This decision requires us to control a bunch of specific cities all over the West Taurus and Tarhantasa regions. It's a tier 2 formable. We change our name from Asita to Tarhantasa. We gain 5 free province investments. We add 8 pops of citizen and freeman stature with state, culture, and religion. And we gain the emergent capital bonus in Asita for the rest of the game. 0.15% local pop growth, 10% civ level, and 8% freeman happiness for uniting the Tarhantasan people. This is a very standard tier 2 style decision for Bronze Age, and we will be going through this over the course of the early and mid game. And this, again, just requires owning specific key cities for these areas. And then we have the slightly more ambitious Unite the Luwian people. Now, I don't even know if I can show you all the various places that are required for this. I don't even think it can fit on the screen here. But basically, we have to control a bunch of important cities, including several that were in the list for the Tarhantasa decision. This, if we are to pull this off, is a Tier 3 formable. We change our name to Luia at this point, because we're uniting, of course, the Luian people of our religion. We gain 8 more Pops, Citizen, and Freeman. Same situation. Center of Civilization in Ostia. Or rather, Asita, I should say. Asita, there we go. Local pop growth plus 0.20%, local civ level plus 10%, pop assimilation speed plus 10%, and 8% local freeman happiness. And Asita gains 3 free province investments. The various Luwian tribes had a common origin, and we now have a common destiny. Right, so those are the formal decisions we have as Asita. And we also can form into some different kinds of governments as well. The mercantile, theocratic, or martial kingdoms. These all require having certain civ advances that we don't have access to at the moment, so we will come back to this later when we talk about civ advances. Now, as for our starting ideas, we definitely want to consider the benefits of getting the slave output bonus, but it may also be worth not getting this in order to get more ideas from more areas that we would like to actually get the direct modifiers for. So it's actually worth considering, does it make sense to match up these ideas and get the bonus, or to not match the ideas and get stronger ideas for what I'm going for? So of the 12 we start off with access to, we've got martial ethos, ordered retreat, thalassocracy, standardized construction, complex tariffs, central urban spaces, sanction privileges, strategic propaganda, hospitium, institutional proselytism, religious calendar, and mandated observance. Now, I will immediately say that one really strong reason to not match up the ideas is that I'd be able to then get sanction privileges. Sanction privileges is a really, really important early idea because anti-corruption is often hard to get early on, and I plan to try to sort of slide my way through a min-maxing approach with corruption to get additional loyalty from my officers, which I'll set up later in this video or possibly in the second video, as these openings to my campaigns often span over multiple videos because there's just so much to talk about. So getting that minus 0.05 monthly corruption from sanctioned privileges might be necessary. We're going to see what our god options are in just a moment, but I do think this is worth considering. Something else we can do is use our available civilization technology points. This is the civ advancement system, which we'll talk about more in a moment, in order to grab bureaucracy 1 to get access to 3 additional idea types. Now, we only have 2 civ tech points available, and so that means we can only go up to level 1 on 2 different civ advances. If we had 3, we could do level 1 and then spend 2 for level 2, because each additional rank up costs an additional idea plus what you already would be spending. So to go up to rank 1 of bureaucracy from rank 0 costs 1 civ tech point, and then to go up to rank 2 costs 2 more civ tech points, then rank 3 is 3 civ tech points, if that makes sense. So it's worth considering, do we want to spend one of our civ techs on bureaucracy 1 to get 3 more ideas? And what it means, or 3 more ideas per type. What that means is actually the next 3 ideas from these. So this would be permanent shipyards, siege training, conscription, grain stockpile, patronized trading posts, tax farming, military administration, functional bureaucracy, legislative reform, haruspicy, tolerance of pagans, and state religion. Now, of these options, given that we already plan, and I'll just tell you right now, I am planning to not match up the ideas. 6% slave output, although nice, isn't really a game changer. We only have a couple of slaves, and ultimately I'm planning to focus a bit more on a commerce economy to some extent, but either way, putting aside those long-term elements, it's just worth ignoring this modifier, because 6% slave output is a much weaker modifier to me than monthly corruption minus 0.05. So I will be getting sanction privileges, and I think I will go ahead and grab it now, because sanction privileges is actually also better than all the other options, including the stuff in the second tier that we need bureaucracy 1 to get. So I will go ahead and grab sanction privileges. I'll go ahead and grab it in the civic idea slot. It doesn't really matter that much, actually, because they're not going to be matched up anyways. So let's go ahead and grab sanction privileges. In current Bronze Age, it costs 5 PI to get ideas as opposed to the default from the vanilla game. I didn't make this change. This is a Bronze Age update. By agreeing to look the other way from time to time, we can lessen our reliance on using currency as a tool for bribery. Minus 0.05 monthly corruption. Okay, now as for the other ideas, let's consider if it's worth to spend 1 civ tech point on the additional 12 ideas here. Now, as for the military ideas, I do think we do absolutely critically need martial ethos. Morale armies plus 10% is going to really help shorten the gap between us and the other AIs, and any AI that gets martial ethos and we don't have it puts them at a staggering 30% morale difference with no other modifiers. So if anything, just to prevent that from happening, we need to get martial ethos critically, even though the other ideas here are also pretty good, particularly conscription for the 10% national manpower. That's a really strong bonus for sure, but 10% morale of armies really just cannot be overlooked in this kind of very hard campaign. So ensuring that our soldiers and veterans hold a prestigious place in the social hierarchy is key to their contentment and loyalty. Very good. All right, lastly, we have got one more slot, and really anything from the remaining 10, or I should say 11, no, yeah, 10, that's right, or these 12 could go here. Now, we could get a religious idea or something else. Let's see here. In terms of what we want to get, it may be worth actually shifting this one around as well, I guess I could also shift around martial ethos we'll be going to war in 1 month, so it does make sense to have martial ethos for the beginning, in fairness. I guess I could have technically gotten it before. No, yeah, it makes sense to have it for the very beginning. But given that it's only 5 PI, we can shift around our ideas fairly frequently. For our third slot, though, I do think, let's see, religion-wise, we're uniformly Luwian, so no need for religious conversion. We have no war exhaustion problems right now. Omen power 20% could be quite strong, depending on what our omen actually is. We'll come back to that. Improved opinion maximum, probably not going to be relevant. Unintegrated culture happiness won't matter for a long time for us. Province loyalty shouldn't matter because we only have 1 province. This is our capital province, which means it's fully loyal all the time. Commerce income won't mean too much quite yet. Build cost and build time is going to be nice, though not quite yet, as we just don't really have the money for it. So let me actually go ahead and come back to this in a moment. I'll probably get the Omen Power one, but let me first check and see what my available gods are. And we already have 104% Omen Power as it is. This will get better as we improve our High Priest as well. As for our available omens, let's see here. Do we have... We actually do have... No, this is uncolonized, that's right. We are mostly in... Yeah, we're going to be expanding into the Asitan area as well. So pop assimilation speed isn't actually super necessary right for the first 5-year period. Popularity gain could be good. Let's see. What's our starting popularity? 50. No modifiers. Actually, no, it's going down. It's going to go down even more with scheme influence. I'll come back to that in a moment. And I'm just kind of hopping around here, but I have so much to deal with here. All right, let's first figure out, are there any morale deities? Because discipline 5.20% is really good, and I may worship Tarhuns for the first 5 years to get that initial military edge, if possible. For the deities of war, let's see. Shanta's pretty good as a deity of war that's a bit more peace-oriented. Manpower recovery speed will be nice for colonization as well. Morale of armies passive from Ina Wantesh with claim fabrication speed omen. Now, the omen power idea would only affect the omen and not the passive, so this wouldn't actually help me. Here we go. National manpower 5% passive and omen morale of armies 5.20%. But is that better than 5.20% discipline? Probably not, to be honest. 5.20% discipline I feel like is stronger than 5.20% morale, but I do think that, especially with the similar numbers we're going to have to many of our contemporaries around us, the morale is a bit more important to close that gap. Although 5% monthly military experience passive from Tarhuns is a really, really, really strong bonus. Probably stronger than 5% national manpower, to be completely honest. These are some really tough calls. Essentially what it comes down to is... Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that for the first 5 years, I wouldn't be able to use the 5.20% morale of armies from Huashana. So I think I will actually keep Tarhuns, and also select Tarhuns as my omen for the first 5-year period. And I think the omen power bonus for even more discipline certainly wouldn't hurt, to be completely honest. Let's see here. What does it say? I don't think it shows discipline here. Discipline is shown in the army, like, tab. In the army, when you have an army selected directly or during a battle. So, Of these 4 options, I think I will select Tarhuns for the first 5 years. No description here. So we're going to get 5.20% discipline for worshipping Tarhuns. Okay. And let's go ahead and, let's see. Will I need the discipline, the additional discipline from having mandated observance, or is it worth actually getting something from one of these categories here? Capital import routes to get access to more trade goods. Oh my gosh, just knocked over my computer there. Getting more capital import routes for more trade goods from more modifiers could also be good. But I think the other strong option of these options, so Tolerance of Pagans is really, really strong. That's 15% more happiness for our native population of Asitans. What's my happiness situation pre any modifiers? It's a little all over the place. Certainly couldn't hurt. Though the output bonuses from happiness wouldn't be enormous at this stage. Country Civ level 5% and monthly Civ change plus 0.02% could also be quite nice. Typically in Bronze Age, most tiles are actually over their Civ cap and are declining back towards it, so this would slow that down a little bit. But again, these are very slight modifiers. They don't really, it doesn't really have the punch I need for the early game. I think the discipline bonus from having mandated observances is actually going to be what really kind of gives me that edge that I need here. Yeah, let me go ahead and go for mandated observance. Making religious observance a compulsory activity will instill a healthy respect for the divine and our populace from a young age. This way I'm also working with a modifier that I have more control over, as now that just means all of my omens are stronger, and I can take advantage of that every 5 years by choosing. Now, I can also change my gods, and doing so would cost 5 stability in current Bronze Age. Again, I didn't change this. This is how Bronze Age works in the current form. Do I want to change these other gods? Now, Adama with the pop assimilation speed, I probably want to keep, as pop assimilation, particularly to get around my heritage, will be quite nice to deal with later, although for now I don't really need that too badly. But 5 stability is not a small amount. I mean, it is small, but it's not insignificant. Now, I do think, as usual, the deities of culture in Bronze Age always go hard. There's so many good modifiers from the culture deities. Basically, all of these deities, including the current one I have, are all quality deities. So let's think about this for a minute. Adama gives me 3% unintegrated culture group happiness passively, which is fine, but not amazing. 12.4% pop assimilation speed omen is really good when I'm assimilating, which I'm not currently. And then we've got Kam Roshipa with Stab Change Passive, absolute goated modifier right there. With Anti-Corruption Omen, this is looking like a winner to me. Monthly Civ Change Passive, pretty good. Monthly Stab Change Omen plus 0.04 might be a game changer, but again, hard to compare with some of these other ones here. AE Change Passive, that's okay. PI Omen, 12.40%, good. Googly Moogly, that's a strong modifier right there. Zawili with the Freeman desired ratio of 5%. Let's see, these desired ratios have got me desiring. Monthly corruption reduction from Omen, another strong option. I may just need to shift around the deity of culture pretty often to pick between these different modifiers here. Of course, when you shift in a new god, you can't use their Omen for a couple of years, but I think it's 3 years normally, so you can shift them in and then use them in the next Omen cycle. So as for now, given that I'm only going to have the passive from the deity of culture, unintegrated culture group happiness isn't very strong compared to some of these other ones. I think that if I were to go for Zawili, I'd want to have them active at all times so I could build around the Freeman desired ratio. I don't know if I need Freeman desired ratio that badly, especially later on compared to the citizen desired ratio I'm going to have. This may also even conflict with it slightly. So I think that actually Kam Roshipa with the stab change passive could actually be quite good to have in the background, particularly as I expect I'll be clicking Talhuns quite a bit. And I can always shift back to Adama later to get the pop assimilation speed bonus for the Omen once I have a free Omen slot ready to go. So I think I will shift in Kam Roshipa to get the passive stab change bonus going in the background. Alright, and then I can possibly switch the other two deities as well. I don't want to go too crazy with my stability, as stability is quite a valuable resource, but I want to set myself up for success here. And as long as I have Kamonoshipa going for... Let me do some quick math here. In fact, let me use my phone to do some quick math, because I'm not very good at math. Pull out the calculator app. Okay, so 0.02. So let's see. Actually, I can just do this. I can do this in my head. 0.02. So 12 months. That's 0.24. Yeah, that sounds right. So 0.24. So this means that 0.24. So 0.24, so let's round that to 0.25. So that's 4 per year. So that's, let's see, 4 per year. No. No, it's 4 years. Yeah. So it's 4 years for one. So that means 20 years. So 4 omen cycles to have Kamonoshipa pay for themselves, basically from the stab change. And the thing to keep in mind as well, so I mean that math was a little complicated, but basically because I spent stability to get a god that gives me stability back, but also monthly stab change flat bonuses are actually stronger than they look because they also are added onto the scaling stability that you gain based on your stab decay, or your, what do you call it, your stability trend. And so this is actually stronger than it looks because we're also getting more stability when we have higher stability closer to 50. It's a little complicated, but the way stability trend is calculated makes flat amounts of stability stronger. So it's probably less than 20 years in all honesty, and I am probably going to keep Kamonoshipa going for at least 20 years to pay for themselves. As for the other options, Ala with the capital import routes passive honestly looks pretty good. I do think that is the best of these passive options, so we'll leave it at that. Tunawiya with the pop growth, pretty solid modifier. Plus, monthly ruler pop gain looks like a pretty good peacetime omen to go for, to be completely honest, as ruler popularity is often a little hard to keep on top of. But there are some other options as well. Pop capacity from Levy is often a pretty good one for the fertility god. Base food capacity is okay. Let's see. If I were to change this, it would probably be to Malia, so I have the global monthly food modifier omen if I need it. Probably not going to need it too often, as we do have the global monthly food from being Luian. But I think Tunawiya with the pop growth and the ruler popularity gain, passive and omen, respectively, actually seems pretty good. So we're going to leave it at that. So having done that, let's now scroll back over here. Actually, let's go next to our government. Now let's talk about the August reign of Ukura the First Takis, of the nation whose name I definitely will pronounce correctly every time, Asita, or Asita. So he is Occitan and Luian, 31 years old. He has himself a consort, the 21-year-old Yarawiya Phileid, and they have 2 children. The 2-year-old son Ilumbeli Takis, and the 1-year-old son Pamasa Takis. Now, Ukura has daring and he's weak-willed. Very interesting combination. Captains the world over are said to scan the horizon for any sight of Ukura. The sea is scattered with debris from his naval victories. 1 extra martial and -5 loyalty. As the king, his loyalty doesn't matter. And if a commander of a navy, his ship damage does increase by 5%. Not too helpful, but nice to know. And he is also weak-willed. The only thing stopping Ukura from simply laying down to die is indecision. It's a brutal bit of lore there. Extra loyalty, which again doesn't matter because he's the king. -2% holding income for him personally. Doesn't really matter too much. And as the governor, fort defense is reduced by 10%. That actually might matter a little bit in a fort race situation, I should say a siege race situation, but probably not going to be a decisive death knell to this campaign. Now, his wife, Yarawiya, is deceitful and merciful, another interesting combination of traits here. The truth may be dishonorable, but according to Yarawiya, it doesn't get you very far. More likely to engage in theft. And she's merciful. Mercy can take many forms, and Yarawiya knows them all. So these will just mean that she has ticking corruption, although sanction privileges does counteract that. And otherwise, nothing too notable there. She has slightly lower loyalty, but otherwise pretty much no problem at all. And let's go ahead and put Akata onto Scheme Influence right away. This will cause him to lose popularity quite quickly, but we will gain 20% extra monthly PI from this. Alright, this will be very important for maximizing our PI, which we will attempt to do actually right now. So let's go ahead and take a look at our offices, first starting in the tech area. We're going to go ahead and fire everyone and start from scratch, reassigning everybody with their aptitude in mind and trying to min-max our positions here. Alright, where are my offices? Here they are. Okay, let's go ahead. Oh, I did this in the wrong order, this guy. Actually, this guy is a pretender, so he was going to be upset no matter what I did. This guy's also actually pretty solid for the position he's in. I may just keep him where he is and not remove him. Let me go ahead and give him free hands. This is why I want anti-corruption going, because the minus 0.05 corruption... Actually, first let me check. Okay, he doesn't have any corrupt traits. That's good. If he did, we may have some trouble here. Let me go ahead and give this guy free hands to get him loyal again. Actually, I will need Taki's characters no matter what I do. Because otherwise my family will be upset. Yeah. Unfortunately. All of the available characters... Actually, that's not true. This guy actually isn't considered a pretender for some reason. But one of the characters I'll need to use is going to be a pretender. None of the other boys are old enough. Because again, we can't have female officers. So this guy, who's the court philosopher, is not a pretender, thankfully. So what I can do, though, is actually move this guy to be a researcher, where his loyalty won't matter for PI purposes, because it won't count as an officer position. So let me go ahead and replace... Let me actually go ahead and just fire him, and just preemptively make him the marshal. But you know what? Hold on. Yeah, here we go. Pick a new Takis. Actually, it was this guy down here. That's completely fine. Let me put the other Takis character who has higher martial into this position instead. There we go. That's a better way to do it. Okay. Back over here. Let's fire and rehire everybody and start from scratch with that one character now dealt with. And since he's not in an office anymore, his free hands won't actually do anything or mean anything. Shouldn't be a problem. I mean, he'll gain corruption, but that's really all. We had to get him out of the office anyways to clear the way. Okay, now let's go ahead and, let's see. I don't really have enough research to justify focusing on it too much yet. So let's, putting aside characters who have really low loyalty that we can't deal with, let's assign everyone to the offices. So first and foremost, we need ourselves a multi-military experience character. This guy here, let's see. It's just from Power Base. He's a family head. I kind of prefer this guy to be a researcher because he's going to have low loyalty as a family head. So let's actually go ahead and do exactly that. Researcher. Maybe oratory. Yeah, here we go. Timeti Alaris. He is now just about loyal, so that's pretty good. As this family becomes not scorned, that'll improve as well. Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead. I don't have a lot of family characters to work with here, oddly enough. Let's go for the 7 Marshal with this guy here. Yeah. Tad Huzuiti affiliated. This guy should be okay. Oh, he's crafty, actually. That might be a problem. Let me think about this. I don't really want to have a crafty character if I can avoid it. This guy, this guy here, might be a good alternative. He's steadfast as well. Great, you've just won yourself the seat. Very good. And then we'll go ahead and give him free hands as well. Maximize his loyalty. Okay. Okay, Omen Power is next. Let's assign this guy here. Walqui affiliated. No problems there. Okay, good. Give him free hands. And then, let's see here. What's most important next? Probably national tax. Let's see. Can we get away with this really high quality minor character. I kind of want to. Arrogant and deceitful. Okay, this guy's going to be difficult to keep on high loyalty. Never mind. Maybe I'll make him the researcher. This guy's a family head. I'd rather not use him. This guy's just as good, but not a family head. Okay. You've just won yourself the seat. Saparta Alaris. Monthly civ change. Let's do... Ooh, this guy's really good. Wow, this guy's a winner right here. Look at this minor character. 27 years old. 11 charisma. Whew, man. It's going to be hard to pass that up. He could be the researcher, but... He should have... Yeah, this guy's going to be easy to deal with the loyalty of. Yeah, this guy's loyalty is absurd. This guy's amazing. Gathaili. Alright, let's do... monthly legitimacy from... I don't want to use the family head if I can avoid it. Here we go. This guy's pretty good. Asmunikal Takis. This is the guy that has the court philosopher before. He's not a pretender, but he's in my family. So that's fine. Okay, next up, let's do Chancellor. We're running out of good options here. What do we have left to do? We need 1 Philiad and 2 Harsiotes characters. Okay. This guy's not from the family, though. It's just a minor character named Harsiotes. Let's do the Philiad. Yeah, this is the family head, though. Let's do the Harsiotes here. 6 Marshall's not amazing, but... Well, loyalty here is not going to be too different, because this guy... Actually, no, hold on. A ruler married overrides it a little bit. Crafty, though, yeah. Alright. I actually care more about the PI from having high loyalty than I do about the value of the impact. Alright, physician. Let's put in Pelagia He's deceitful, though. Sanction well, I'd rather... Anybody else? No one with any quality, though. I mean, this is just the physician. It's probably not a huge deal. Crafty. This guy's honest. Alright. This guy's really incompetent, but I'm going to put him in there just because I need someone from this family. Adahi, Tessib, Philiad. Alright. And he's going to have 100 loyalty, as he should. This guy does not have any qualification for this position other than his family name. Adahi Tessib. Okay. And you know what? While we're in a... let's see here. Alright. This will have to do. Forgiving, that's more loyalty. Alright, another charity pick here. Pehasam Muwa Harasiotis as my chancellor. A little incompetent, but he will be loyal. And that's 2 PI already, just from my shenanigans here. Look at that. Now this is some political stuff right here. Okay, having done that, let's go back over to the researchers and just assign whoever has high quality and remains available. Paraziti Alaris, I think I said this guy should be my... Oh yeah. His low loyalty and corruption problems won't matter when he's the researcher. And for my religious advancement position, I could put this guy here to give him more loyalty. I think that's probably fine. He'll gain more power base as well as the researcher, but I would like him to be a little bit more loyal. Yeah, he just gained a little bit of loyalty, but it's fine. Okay. I think I've just about pulled that off. Alright, we now have our government organized, and we have ourselves some PI flowing in. Let's go ahead and, while we've got this organized now, do our war council. We should only be able to get a claim on Warsti, which we border, but we might get a claim from the ocean on Tatiwas. See exactly how this goes. Summons a selection of your closest advisors to determine a good direction for our next conquest and provide a claim on a neighboring province every 10 years. Alright, we do have a consensus. All Asita sleeps, as the war council drags well on into the night. Assembled are 3 brilliant Asitan minds, summoned to provide insight, each determined to convince us of the validity of their argument. Huidu Duwali, the author of several tactical treatises, this is my marshal. Huli Yazalmanu, a well-known rogue and philanderer, this is my master of the guard. and Asmunakal, an advisor of uncertain standing. The debate quickly descends into anarchy, with each party determined to make their feelings known. However, the calm voice of our king cuts across the raging argument with one short phrase: Warsty must be destroyed. Okay, that is no surprise there. I don't know why I said that with such a surprised tone. Warsty, what? It's all according to plan here. As one, the three advisors fall into their seats, unsure of quite how they missed this obvious conclusion, before pledging their swords to Asita, I should say, each musing over the brilliance of King Akura. We have a consensus. That's extra loyalty for these three fellas. Very nice. Even more PI for me. That is what I want. Okay, that is that. And I'm going to go ahead and end the episode here for this first episode of the Asita campaign. Thank you all so much for watching this first episode. Please let me know in the comments what you think of this brand new series and what you're most excited about my return to Bronze Age Reborn with this brand new series and with where things can go in the campaign. I'm looking forward to a nice long Bronze Age campaign, looking to recapture the experience that I had with the Domiset campaign, which was the longest and went furthest into the late game of all of my campaigns that I've done. And I think Bronze Age is just the perfect mod for that kind of long campaign experience. So we're back, we're going in full force ahead with the Asita campaign, and I will at some point figure out how to pronounce it consistently, but not today. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.